stringing problems, your print bed leaving the building, and a couple of bamboo failures. All this and more, PrintFix Friday, episode 80. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here and you're struggling with your 3D printer, make sure to get subscribed and leave a like if you think we deserved it, because we've got a couple of awesome fails for you coming up. We're going to be talking about how to fix them. And if you are looking to get some help on your 3D printer, remember, you can reach out to us by sliding into those DMs on all the social medias, emailing us, YouTube at 3dmusketeers.com, or you can join our Discord at the $10 tier higher via Patreon, YouTube channel members, and now PayPal, so you can come hang out with us and talk with us directly, not have to wait to a Friday episode to get some help. There is some cool failures in here, including an update on my experience with my now second Bambu Lab X1 Carbon. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this segue to our sponsor, 3D Musketeers. Remember, if you want to have some professionals help you print better, reach out to the pros at 3D Musketeers. With over 40 3D printers and over 40 years of combined experience, the team here at 3D Musketeers can help you go from art to part as quickly as possible. We are now also offering high-end 3D scanning services, from incredibly tiny parts to incredibly large parts, including cars, buildings, trains, automobiles, and more. I said cars twice, but we don't care. We're doing it live. You can reach out to us because we do love our Artec 3D scanners. More content on that coming up. Stay tuned if you're interested in that kind of thing. But if you do want to help support the channel financially and aren't looking to outsource any work at this time, you can do so by joining Patreon, YouTube channel members, and now PayPal as an option to support us directly. And at the $10 tier higher, you get to come into our private Discord and hang out with all the awesome Musketeers and myself, where we have some awesome conversations all about tech and some things that are going wrong behind the scenes that don't make it into these videos themselves. But hey, we get it. You might not have some cash to spare. A like, share, subscribe, and hey, leave a comment while you're at it. Goes a long way to helping this channel grow, as we are seeing hockey stick level growth right now. Thank you all for your support that you have provided to us and the continued support that you bring to this channel. But enough of me blabbering on about loving you guys and thanking you for the work that you do. Let's get back into fixing some of these fails. First layer always looks like this, but subsequent layers look totally fine. And when it's finished, you can't tell the first layer wasn't great. Well, I mean, if the rest of it looks fine, does this matter? Cat says maybe. Cat says I'm gonna have to restart this one. The average person might say, no, I don't care if my first layer looks like crap if the rest of it still looks good. But if you are really trying to get this thing dialed in, you actually got it right here in the questions. Your nozzle, just slightly too close. This could be from some retraction, but to me it looks like we've got some spread coming up from the side of the nozzle. We did a video all about Z offset recently. We'll card to it so you guys can take a look, and it's a great rundown of what Z offset, and then we also did one on bed leveling will look like, whether it's good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. This could be something that's more retraction related, but because we're seeing it on basically every single line, I'm gonna go with we might be a little too close, and potentially your bed may not be level, because this looks okay, maybe slightly too close, but also being white filament, you have to temper your expectations ever so slightly, because white filament will show a lot more problems that regular filament won't. For those that have been here for a while know I have a bit of a, basically I just can't stand it, relationship for the pure titanium dioxide white filament that is commonplace out there. I don't like it. I don't think it belongs in printing, and especially when you are trying to dial in settings like this, you really need to make sure it works perfectly. And so I would say, let's look at moving that Z offset a little bit further away. This being a Neptune printer, we can go ahead and just turn the dials and pull away ever so slightly. Or if your bed is level and it's just consistently like this, add a little bit of global Z offset into your slicer. That should clean things up. High spot on printing surface. So we've got a Carborundum glass plate, which I can't stand those Carborundum glass plates, but fine. And it appears that we get okay, and then it gets really a bit too close. Then it looks like it's a bit too far. There's something majorly wrong with this plate. However, I want us to look at what else could be the problem here. We've definitely got an issue with inconsistent distance from the nozzle to the print bed. If you are not dealing with your cables properly, we could be seeing some extra drag created by the cables, causing maybe the hot end to be a little bit too close, but honestly, chances are this piece of glass just sucks. For as cheap as Carborundum glass plates are, get rid of them and get yourself a decent flex plate. Now, you can start with one of the cheap ones if you want. They're generally okay, and you can find them. They're a dime a dozen on Amazon. But if you do want to go for the Rolls Royce of PEI-like flex plates, the Wham Bam PEX plates are pretty darn awesome. We have one on our Bambu Lab X1 Carbon, and that's about the only thing I love about that printer. Stay tuned for the end of this episode because we're going to get into that again. But for this particular one, we definitely want to check to make sure there's nothing else binding. We want to make sure our V-wheels are nice and tight, but not too tight and not too loose. We went over this where the Goldilocks zone tends to be in a recent video where we covered all about V-wheels. We'll card to it so you guys can take a look as well. And with this particular thing, I want to remove the Carborundum. I want to potentially just flip it over. That might help as well, because chances are it's not consistently warped across the entire plate. And if you flip it over and are still seeing this problem, let's look at the glass being removed, changing it out for something else. If you wanted to, you could look at mounting on some sort of dial indicator to try to indicate out the bed, but at some point, it's more work than it's actually worth. In a case like this, if you don't want to go through all that effort, you can try to just average it out and say, it's going to be a little too close in some places. It might be a little bit too far in others. It's good enough for government work, and as long as the first layer actually prints, then it should be fine. But be careful with these Carborundum glass plates. All those little dots are silicon carbide, otherwise known as sandpaper, and that is absolutely more abrasive than your really soft metal, in comparison, brass nozzle that will get worn down as it drags across that Carborundum. So be careful about that. That is an absolute trap for newbies there that will cause you to really chase dragons of things like retraction distances, potential over extruding or even under extruding because your nozzle's being ground down over time because you're just too close on your first layer. It happens, and it happens to all of us. So be careful on that one, and maybe it should help. Print stuck at the bottom. We got a resin print here saying, hello, recently bought an Anycubic Photon M3 Max. When I went for the second print, it got stuck on the FEP film. The only change I did was that the resin this time is black and not gray. Also, before printing, I noticed FEP had 2 small wrinkles just in the middle. Should I change it? What could cause this? Well, different resins have different cure times. And if you're not curing long enough, your parts are going to stick to your FEP rather than your build plate. Specifically for the darker resins, you need longer cure times because it takes them longer to absorb in that UV light. So for something like a black resin, you would look at wanting to tune it for a little bit longer exposure times. This is why the cones of calibration are a phenomenal tool for helping you. And of course, we've interviewed Ty. We will link to that video in that description so you guys can take a look at it. It's a great interview talking all about why the cones of calibration are one of the best models that you can use for dialing in individual resins so that you avoid issues like this as often as possible. As for the wrinkles in the FEP, if it's not causing you trouble, you can go ahead and leave it alone. But best practice is to replace it when you do start to notice imperfections in it. It is just a relatively time-consuming and laborious process. I am of the crowd saying if it ain't broken, it still prints, don't fix it. Lines appearing taller, I print, as well as small holes in the surfaces. This is a really interesting print failure. So it looks great, and then all of a sudden it stops looking great and starts to look really, really bad. So these little pits and holes, I'm going with being retraction issues. This fail has actually existed long enough that they've actually figured out their problem. So let's see what they did. They checked the temp settings for the filament, and it was below the recommended by about 10C. So they will test to see what happens with the holes in the print. They clean the block and replace the nozzle going forward. The screws in the base plate and the plate holding the extruder were very wobbly. Tighten the screws by using the following videos. And these videos just walk you through the basis of setting up a CR10, which is generally the same as an Ender 3 or any really bed slinger pretty much is going to follow those basic ways. So they've attempted to tighten belts, replace nozzle, level the bed, and then change the retraction settings. I believe we have a few problems working against us, and this kind of sucks. So the first thing, retraction. These little holes are generally caused from your retraction, and we can see it's more, at least from what I can tell, at the end of the line, because it looks like it's happening at where the printer is stopping versus where it is starting. In fact, where it's starting, it looks dead on. So most likely you have too much coast on your print. Now, if you don't know where to find that setting, it will vary based on your slicers. You can try searching for coast, but you can also look for wiping settings. In Prusa Slicer, you have the ability to wipe during your retraction, and that would generally solve most of what we see here in terms of these little pits. Some people might think that it's wet filament, but this is not wet filament, at least from my perspective. It actually looks to be in good shape. The wiggling that we have, though, this is Z-wobble. This is caused from when your lead screw itself has a tendency to not be straight, and your V-wheels and your whole frame are going to flex with it, creating this. So as the lead screw turns, the high spot moves around, and that's what we see here. I'm surprised that this didn't bind up, because this is pretty bad for binding, and I don't think I've seen this bad in a long time. And we can see that a lot of the comments are agreeing here that we need to check the Z-axis, clean it with all parts touching it, which is a great thing to do, and make sure it's straight. If you're not sure how to make sure that your Z-axis is straight, you can loosen the coupler that holds on the lead screw to the motor. If you don't have a coupler and it's directly installed, then you're gonna have to remove the entire motor with the Z-axis as well. Then place the lead screw on a table and roll it. Does it roll smoothly? If it doesn't roll smoothly, you've got a bent Z lead screw and it is time to replace it. There are ways to technically straighten it, but I don't think they're worth your time. Just replace it. It's not expensive. It's way easier to just replace it. As for the little blobs and pits that we see, pretty sure this is retraction based, because I don't think I'm seeing it more than once per line. Although, yeah, we actually do see it maybe once or twice per line. If you see it multiple times per line, that could be a ramming thing. Check how fast you are reinserting the filament back into the hot end. So retraction, you generally want to pull it out as quickly as you can, but then slowly put it back into the hot end so that it can get warm again before it gets extruded. If you don't let the filament preheat basically long enough before it starts to be extruded, you can get excess pressure that will lead to cavitation that we might be seeing here on the print as well. So good things to look out for, and definitely places to start. Not a guarantee, but places to start. Next up, a fail from a fan, Dr. Craig here, who has got a pretty rough print. They managed to miss last week's show, but thank you for commenting and sharing this. Of course, if you guys are looking to get your fails featured here and me to take a look at them, you can reach out to us on all the social medias, email and all that kind of thing. Links are in that description. Reach out to us. We'd love to take a look at your fails. They said, guess who forgot to clip their glass plate to the bed? Quite happy with my first layer adhesion though. Bonus points if anyone wants to count how many layers it printed before sliding off completely. That's rough. This is where they got lucky, kind of, in that they didn't use a tempered glass plate. This is a plate glass mirror, and often we tell people to stay away from these. The reason is thermal shock will cause them to crack. The upside to it is if you do break the plate, it doesn't break into 1,000 pieces. It tends to break into, maybe a couple of dozen. They had some sort of sticker on their plate, whether it was PEI or something like that, that basically held it together, like window tint, basically. And if you are going to run glass and you're only going to run one side of the glass, I do recommend putting a piece of, whether it's window tint or film or something on there, that if you do shatter your plate, a lot of it should be stuck to that sticker of sorts. Although, take that with a grain of salt, because it can reduce your heat up times and create an insulation layer rather than allowing the heat to pass through. So, use sparingly. But yeah, if you don't remember to put your clips on, it can absolutely yeet the bed right off the printer. And bonus points, because it did do a pretty darn good job. And like I said, on the bright side, the plate stayed together. So if nothing else, you had that going for you, which is nice. And last but not least, you guys know I have to update on my Bambu situation. While it is currently printing, and I assume printing well, I I have no way of checking on it. We are actually currently printing the time lapse for Thursday, which we'll put on the screen, good, bad, or indifferent. And yeah, I mean, it's sliced totally fine, but I've got a major problem. I cannot connect to my printer at all. No matter what I do, I am unable to actually connect to the Bambu Lab X1 Carbon. I have done a full reinstallation, including deleting all user settings. Oh, and by the way, if you do export a config file, don't rely on it, because when I reinstalled after completely deleting everything for Bambu Studio, all of my user profiles were gone. Even though I had a config file, they were all gone. So rip to me, have to build those from scratch again. But when I'm dealing with these problems, this is not the plug and play up and running in 15 minutes that I expect. And while it did print with, I believe, within 30 minutes, honestly, it probably would have been 15 minutes if I didn't have the stream running. The first feeder on the AMS is completely clogged up. The orange filament actually snapped during removal and is jammed inside of the AMS feeder. The only way to clear it is to physically take it apart and work on it that way. And, well, I'm not feeling up to that task right now, so I'm just running the print in slot 2. Further on, I have figured out that the issue with loading and unloading is due to the PTFE tube. This is a well-documented issue that Bambu has just decided they're not going to deal with, and that users can print a part to help deal with that curvature going into the hot end itself. Now that I've added that printed part, it seems to be printing okay, but I'm still getting lackluster filament unloads because sometimes it just fails to cut the filament. The cutter is clean, it is sharp, and there seem to be no other issues with it, but it's just not cutting all the way through the filament sometimes. I don't know why. My best guess is that the cutter arm might be a little bit flexible for some reason, and instead of actually cutting through the filament is just flexing as it's being pressed up against the side of the printer. And for everyone that was yelling at me to connect it to my network and get it updated, I tried for over 3 hours today with no results. That included completely restarting my computer, completely restarting my network, getting a brand new modem. Hilariously, I've been having issues with my internet, so in the time that I was messing around, we had a tech come out. They decided that my modem was bad and replaced the modem, so I even have a brand new modem. I've assigned it a static IP, and I've tried a dynamic IP. It prefers static, at least from my last experience with the X1 Carbon. And unfortunately, if you don't connect it to Bambu Studio, which I am not able to do, your printer is unable to get firmware updates. So my printer is currently stuck with the firmware that it has come with from the factory, which puts me at exactly where I showed it to you guys during the live stream. So I'm glad I didn't go through all of those steps, because that would have been 3 hours of me getting really pissed not being able to show you guys anything, because to do a lot of this, you have to expose your network to a computer screen, which for me would have been the stream. So I'm glad we didn't do that. But I'm also glad we didn't do it, because I would have probably rage quit the stream a lot earlier than I did. While the machine is printing, I have none of the features that I should. I am unable to update it. You are unable to update a Bambu Lab X1 Carbon as of this video via the SD card, which is absolutely asinine. And still, we have no idea what is inside of a Bambu Lab log file. But I do have some buddies that are working on that, so, you know, stay tuned if that's your kind of thing, because they refuse to tell us what we're sending, but they still need us to send stuff. So I'm going to find out what we are actually sending. I have the log files from my old printer, and we're going to try to get to the bottom of it. So, you know, if we can, of course there'll be a video. But I gave Bambu Lab a chance here. They knew who I was very open with them and said, look, I'm sending this one back. It's a lemon. Here's my video all about it. You guys have one more chance. I'm giving you a chance. I am extending an olive branch and saying, if you want to test the printer before it comes to me so you can verify that it totally works, I have no issues with this. In fact, I recommend it, because I'm going to do a live unboxing and give my unscripted opinion of it live. And if it doesn't go well, that's not on me. And it didn't go well. And it's not on me. So it's just funny to me that these problems continue to happen. I extended an olive branch to Bambu, and they basically kicked it back and said, we don't give a shit. You're gonna get the same thing that everybody else gets, which is fine. I totally understand that, right? You know, treat me like every other customer. But if this is what every other customer is going to get, we've got ourselves a problem. I've reached out to multiple people to try to get help with this. And the first one said, well, why don't you just do it over USB? Not knowing that you can't update these printers over USB because they're not USB connectable. It's just not a thing. And this is where I kind of have to give up again. If I can't get my machine connected to Bambu Studio, I am unable to update it. I'm unable to send it things. And I think we might even be limited in what we're able to remove for our time lapse. So there might not even be a time lapse on Thursday. I have no clue. But all of this results in an experience that is not user-friendly, that doesn't have the right user experience, right? The UX that I would expect. And when the only error that I'm getting is login failed, code 2, info equals connect failed, over and over and over again, when we can clearly see the printer. The printer's right there. That's the printer, but we can't connect to it. That's ridiculous. And considering my personal network has not changed since the old Bambu, which did connect after a few hours of troubleshooting, I don't know what to say here. It feels like, I don't know, maybe they just hate me and I am getting sent bad units. Maybe I'm just really unlucky, or maybe I'm an absolute and utter moron like a lot of the Bambu fanboys are saying in the comments. If you've got a solution to this, let me know. But I've tried a lot of things, and let me run through the list because it's kind of ridiculous. A clean install, including removing user settings. This involves opening up the configuration folder, which you can do inside of help, showing the configuration folder, and deleting everything in here. This removes all user preferences, as well as when you do the uninstall, you could also have delete user data. I did that. I made sure the old machine was removed from the Bambu Studio install, which it was. I made sure that I can see the machine in devices in Studio, which I can, and you can see that I can. I made a new Bambu account to see if it maybe was just my old account. Nope, that didn't do anything. I rebooted my network, computer, and the printer. That did not do anything. Static versus dynamic IP, neither of them changed anything. I whispered sweet nothings to it. I threatened it with bodily harm. I gave it a yee and a haw, and then I left it to think about what it did for hours. And nothing has worked, and I'm all out of options. As an end user, there's only so much I can do before I have to say this machine doesn't work again. And if I am 0 for 2, there's nothing that I can do here other than say, don't buy from this company. I really wanted this to be a complete and utter change of narrative. I did everything that I could to allow Bambu to outstretch an olive branch to help adjust this narrative. And while Will from Bambu Lab has been awesome, I've been DMing him back and forth on Twitter, even he is running out of options. And I don't like the feeling or the look of that. In that on my first print, I have damage already to the printer that is going to require me to completely remove parts. And now I'm unable to update my printer with what apparently the community is saying is mission critical firmware. It's not. It works perfectly fine with the firmware that it's shipped with. It's just not the latest, which means certain things may not work as well as they would work otherwise. I'm also now limited in my ability to use all of the fun features, such as the monitoring of the camera, streaming it live to MakerDeck, because I would normally be streaming all the prints that we can to MakerDeck, and the Bambu would be one of them. I can't do that unless I can connect to the printer itself. It again feels as though I got a lemon. So far, this one's actually printing okay, but if it prints okay, but nothing else works, it really doesn't put me any further off than where I was previously, especially when these new firmware updates do solve actual problems in the machine, and I am not currently able to do them. Now, if there was a way to update the firmware via the SD card, we would have done that on the stream, but it is not possible. You must internet connect your machine to your copy of Bambu Studio for it to be able to do that. And honestly, that's a little ridiculous and is going to absolutely limit Bambu's ability to penetrate the audience outside of the prosumer market, because businesses like mine that deal with things like government contracts, where I can't have that printer on the same network as everything else if we are doing something regarding government contracts, which I am not doing right now so I can do this video. So I'd love to know what you guys want me to do. Let me know in those comments below because I'm a little fed up. That's all I have for you all today. Remember, if you want to submit your failures for me to take a look at and analyze here on the show, all those links are in that description down below. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. Filament that has absorbed a little bit of water and is not firmly in the stage of I'm very wet. Oh no, we can't say that. Oh God. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video, and a massive thank you goes out to all of our Patreon, YouTube, and now PayPal supporters whose names are listed right next to me at the $5 tier and higher. Thank you all for what you do in making these episodes possible. Remember, if you want to support this channel financially, kick a couple of bucks into that creator fund, you can do so by clicking those links in that description down below. Right below me will be the entire Print Fix Friday series where you can take a look at fails and how to fix them. And next to that will be me versus Bambu, which is what I should feel like that entire playlist should be called, because I really just have not had a good experience yet, and that sucks because I really, really want that narrative to change. I'll see you guys down in those comments and in the next one. Take care.